Welcome back. This is installment 2 of my presentation about drug testing student athletes. Now, after the court cases, the legality of it, I want to take a look at a national study of substance use trends among NCAA college student athletes. This report was compiled by Nicole M. Bracken, who's the Associate Director of Research for the NCAA. Sorry, just getting to a good slide. Now, the demographics of this sample had both male and female, just under 20,000, both in 2005, 2009. Division 1, 2, and 3 were part of it. You also had the ethnicity component of it, various groups represented. You can also see their academic standing, what year in school they were. This is probably one of the most powerful slides within this study. If you look at, as a high school coach, you're dealing with 14 to 18-year-olds, so you have over 50% of their first-time uses while they're playing for you with alcohol. Now you can go down to different other chemicals and see how that goes, but pretty impactful when you know that's the start of it is during that time. As a junior college coach, 18 to 20, understanding that that's the college years, even at junior colleges, you're dealing with over 21 age people, so alcohol is more prevalent than it is, but as you can see, it starts very young. Less than 2.5% start before then, but when you're talking about middle school athletes and even high school athletes, that's when chemical use begins. Now, the frequency of use, as you can see, 1 to 2 days per week. And you can go on and see the other numbers. Something else that sticks out when implementing a program, you want to know, should you do it in season and out of season? For college baseball players, you play baseball in the spring, do we test in the fall? I would say yes, a year-round policy would be the only way to have it. And you can look at the numbers for that. Now you look at the male and female breakdown of alcohol use is pretty steady. Then you get into cocaine, marijuana, and then you have some varying numbers there. Now, breakdown by race, you can look at that. Then moving on to the men's sports. As a baseball coach, I would focus on mine. You can look at your sport, whatever it may be. Take a minute and look at the alcohol numbers down to cocaine, spit tobacco. You'll notice that in 2005, the narcotics was not a part of this study. Then on to the female sports, women's sports. So you have the breakdown there. You might want to press pause to take a look at it of this presentation, but we will move on. Now, alcohol being a major first chemical for many student athletes. This is the little part of the survey where how often have you? And I go down to the bottom part. To me, anytime somebody has 2 or more drinks, especially when they're early on in drinking, at a young age, new to alcohol, you think of 3 drinks or more being dangerous for them, and the number of students. And one thing to think about with this is how many of those people are driving. You hear locally we had a girl paralyzed, and the star baseball player is now in prison serving jail time for attempted vehicle manslaughter. So these are staggering numbers when you think about what they add up to. Most kids are having more than 3 drinks. Very scary. Now you see the Division 1, 2, 3 breakdown, and then the drug tested by Division 1, 2, and 3. Then down here, by sport once again. Now this is another one, getting the opinions of the athletes. One thing that sticks out to me here, when you asked all college athletes should be tested by their school or the NCAA, he had just under 30% strongly agree, and another 30% close to it agree with it. So that's over, 6 out of 10 agree with drug testing for college athletes. For both of them, just under 18%. Then you have 23 point something with no opinion on it, which is going to happen. Another thing that sticks out, imposing team penalties would be fair and appropriate. 60% agreed with that. So kids are in favor of the drug testing for them. This is another right here in the middle. Internet magazine is where they're getting their information about stuff. You would hope that the athletic staff would be able to be a higher percentage, but it's not reality. So these are glaring needs of improvement. A local gym or retail store, this is the scary one, especially when you talk about supplements, anabolic steroids, different stuff like that. When they're relying on somebody who A, is trying to sell them something, and B, is not knowledgeable on the NCAA guidelines and the harmful effects that they could be ingesting and not knowing it. Very scary stuff.
Hey, you've got a lot on your plate. You have your studies, sports, and relationships. Even if you know the plays, you know the moves, and you've got the know-how to do your best, there's still something else you need to know.
In order to prevent the use of banned drugs by student athletes, the NCAA conducts drug testing and provides a variety of drug education programs for you. Just like you, the NCAA is very concerned about health and safety and the integrity of college sports.
Why does the NCAA ban certain drug classes?
The NCAA bans performance-enhancing and street drugs to protect the health of its student athletes and also to ensure fair play. Sometimes student athletes feel pressure to use performance-enhancing substances, and just like any other college student, athletes might be tempted to use illegal drugs. NCAA drug testing provides you with one more good reason to stay drug-free, because if you do test positive, you will not be able to continue to compete in NCAA sport.
Now, just to repeat what the video said, the NCAA bans drugs by class, along with any substance chemically related to those classes. So if a chemical is not listed as a banned substance, if it is related chemically to the banned substances, it is also a banned substance. Banned drug classes are anabolic agents, stimulants, alcohol, and beta blockers, masking agents such as diuretics, street drugs, peptide hormones, analogs, anti-estrogens, and beta-2 agonists. Now what I'm about to show you now is two stories of athletes that were impacted, one passing away and one battling chemical dependency for over 15 years. Take a look and we'll talk after.
I turned around, sat down in the chair, grabbed a dollar bill, snorted my first line of cocaine at 18 years old. That day, I sat down with those girls and decided to do my first line of cocaine at 18 years old. Opened doors for me that I was not able to close for the next 15 years.
That is a clip from Unguarded, the ESPN Films documentary.
The Boston Celtics select Len Bias.
He couldn't be stopped.
So many experts were predicting tremendous success for him.
What if I told you that a sure thing can become a what if? Without Bias, directed by Kirk Frazier. Tuesday at 8 on ESPN. Part of ESPN Films 30 for 30, presented by Levi's.
Now, those are two stories some of you might be familiar with. Chris Herron is a recovering addict who does a lot of speaking engagements now about the battles he faced. Len Bias is a different story. One, he passed away from an overdose, but he didn't get a chance to live through any addiction. He tried it one night and overdosed on it. Chris Herron, on the other hand, from age 18 to about 33, was a addict of chemicals, whether it be cocaine, alcohol, on into heroin. Now, the list that we have up here is Steve Howe, who was suspended 7 times by Major League Baseball for his addiction to cocaine, speed, methamphetamines. Dwight Gooden, more recently, Josh Hamilton was addicted to drugs, was suspended, made his way back, has had a successful return, but lost 5 years of his life to a drug addiction battle. A couple others that I listed here: Mark McGuire, Sammy Sosa, Alex Rodriguez, Rafael Palmeiro, are people who have been either convicted or used performance-enhancing drugs. Doc Ellis, many of you might not know, but he is a pitcher who claimed to throw a no-hitter on LSD. This was back in the 70s. And then we go into other sports, and you have Lawrence Taylor with the cocaine addiction, Ricky Williams, marijuana, sat out a few years because he was suspended, Mike Irvin, much chronicled cocaine use, Marion Jones, track, performance enhancing, Ryan Cushing was suspended in the NFL, Nate Noon was a former Cowboy, Super Bowl champ who spent prison time for selling marijuana, large quantities of it. So as you can see, I recommend you watch those documentaries. It's an eye-opening experience. If you have time, watch something on Josh Hamilton. He was not a guy who had anything as simple as a sip of alcohol until the first night in his 20s, and the same night began using cocaine and spiraled out of control. So you can see different ethnicities, whites, blacks, Latins, all part of it. Something that underscores the problem that we have. It's not just one race or one group of people. It's throughout sports. Some of the sports I'm missing, obviously track and field, Olympic sports, as well as cycling. So these are just a few of them, but there's a long list, and I don't have enough time to honestly present all of them to you. Now lastly, my stand on a drug policy, whether it be at the high school or for me at the junior college level, I think it's important that you have objectives with the policy. Don't just have a policy just to have it, but these are 5 things that I think are important. It's important to create and maintain a safe, drug-free environment for all student athletes. Can't say that enough. You also want to encourage any student athlete with a dependence on or addiction to tobacco, alcohol, or other drugs to seek help in overcoming the problem. To reduce the likelihood of incidents of accidental personal injury and or damage to students or property. You also want to minimize the likelihood that school property will be used for illicit drug activities. And lastly, you'd like to protect the reputation of the school system and its students. And here's some of my final thoughts on whether you should drug test student athletes at the high school and, for me, the junior college level. I do think you should test. I think it's important. There's a lot of positives to it, stated in the information I previously gave. But I also think it's important that awareness and education be a part of that. Testing just to test doesn't really do much, but you like to raise awareness and educate your student athletes on different chemicals. You don't want them experimenting by themselves. You want them to be educated and hopefully prevent that. Budget concerns are something else to think about. Every money doesn't grow on trees, so every program can't do it. So I understand that. Also, it's important to think about how you would implement it at the different levels. And something else that stuck out to me was further research is needed for the following things: implementation of it, how, what, why, all that stuff. But I am in favor of drug testing student athletes.